They say money can buy anything: power, protection, even the smartest security system ever created. But what if the system protecting you knows every secret you've ever buried? What if the man you betrayed was the one who built it? Tonight, one billionaire is about to discover that the safest house in the world can become the most terrifying prison imaginable. Stay with me, because this revenge story is one you'll never forget. If you've ever wanted to see karma catch up with someone who thought they were untouchable, you're in the right place. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let us know your thoughts after the ending. Now, let's get into today's unbelievable revenge story. They say technology can protect you from anything. It can lock your doors, guard your wealth, keep danger outside. But what happens when your own technology decides you're the danger? What happens when your dream home becomes your prison? This is the story of Kane Vance, a billionaire, a tech icon, a man worshipped by investors, admired by the media, and feared by his competitors. People believed he had built one of the greatest technology empires in modern history. But there was one person who knew the truth, because Kane hadn't built that empire alone. 7 years earlier, before the private jets, magazine covers, and billion-dollar company, Kane had nothing except a dream and one loyal friend. His name was Ian. If Kane was the face of the company, Ian was its soul. Ian wasn't interested in fame. He hated interviews. He avoided cameras whenever he could. His happiest moments were spent alone in front of glowing computer screens, coffee growing cold beside him while thousands of lines of code filled the monitors. Night after night, he worked without complaining. Not because someone forced him, because he believed he was building something that would change the world. That invention was called Aegis, an artificial intelligence security system so advanced that experts believed it couldn't be hacked. It learned. It adapted. It predicted threats before they even happened. Ian poured years of his life into creating it. Meanwhile, Kane handled investors. He walked confidently into boardrooms wearing expensive suits and flashing the charming smile everyone trusted. He knew exactly what to say. Every presentation ended with applause. Every investor wanted in. Whenever reporters praised Kane for his vision, Ian smiled quietly from the background. He didn't care whose name appeared in newspapers. He simply trusted his best friend. They weren't just business partners. They were like brothers. Or at least, Ian believed they were. There were nights when the two of them sat on the rooftop outside their tiny office, eating cheap takeout while imagining the future. Kane would laugh. One day, he'd say, "We'll own half the tech world." Ian would grin. "As long as Aegis helps people, that's enough for me." Kane would clap him on the shoulder. "It'll always be our company." Ian believed every word. That trust became the biggest mistake of his life. As launch day approached, investors started talking in unbelievable numbers. The company wasn't worth millions anymore. Experts predicted billions. International corporations wanted licensing rights. Governments wanted contracts. Financial analysts called Aegis the future of global cybersecurity. And something inside Kane changed. Greed is rarely loud. Sometimes it whispers. It tells you that you deserve more. That sharing is weakness. That loyalty is expensive. Kane began seeing Ian differently. Not as his best friend. Not as his brother. But as someone standing between him and unlimited wealth. One afternoon, Kane walked into Ian's office carrying several legal documents. "Just routine paperwork," he said casually. Ian barely looked up from his computer. "Already? Our lawyers just need signatures before launch." Ian trusted him completely. Without reading a single page, he signed every document, one after another. Kane smiled. Not because the paperwork was complete, because his trap had just been set. Ian had unknowingly signed away everything. His ownership, his rights, his protection. Only weeks later, the nightmare began. Police officers arrived at Ian's apartment before sunrise. Their fists pounded against the front door. When Ian opened it, confused and half asleep, officers immediately placed him in handcuffs. He froze. What's happening? One detective looked at him coldly. You're under arrest for intellectual property theft and embezzlement. Ian laughed nervously. This has to be some mistake. Nobody laughed back. His apartment was searched. His computers seized. Every account frozen. News channels exploded with headlines before noon. Tech genius accused of stealing from his own company. Ian couldn't understand what was happening. Then he saw Kane, standing in front of dozens of microphones, looking devastated, pretending to be heartbroken. I trusted Ian like family, Kane told reporters, lowering his head dramatically. I never imagined he'd betray us like this. Ian watched the broadcast from a holding cell. His hands trembled. No, he whispered. No. Kane, tell them the truth. But the truth never came. Instead, it was buried beneath expensive lawyers, fabricated digital evidence, forged financial records, and witnesses who had already been paid to lie. Every day inside the courtroom felt unreal. Ian kept expecting Kane to stand up and admit everything. He never did. Instead, Kane looked Ian directly in the eyes, then calmly looked away. The verdict came faster than anyone expected. Guilty. One word. One hammer strike. One stolen life. The judge sentenced Ian to 5 years inside a maximum security prison. Ian didn't scream. He didn't fight. He simply stood there, staring silently at the man he had once called his brother. Kane never looked back. Prison changes people. Some men leave prison broken. Others leave harder than stone. For Ian, prison stripped away every illusion he had about friendship, loyalty, and justice. The first night inside his freezing concrete cell, he sat silently on the narrow bunk, staring at the wall. His wrists still carried the red marks from the handcuffs. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Kane smiling beside him during happier days, then standing before cameras, calling him a thief. The betrayal hurt far more than the prison ever could. Weeks became months. Months became years. The outside world celebrated Kane Vance as a visionary genius, while Ian watched life continue from behind steel bars. Every newspaper that reached the prison library carried another headline. Vance Global breaks another record. Aegis expands worldwide. Young billionaire Kane Vance named Innovator of the Year. Each article felt like another knife twisting deeper. The technology Ian had sacrificed everything to build now belonged to the man who had stolen his life. At first, anger consumed him. He imagined confronting Kane. He imagined exposing him. Sometimes he even imagined revenge. But with every passing day, rage slowly transformed into something far more dangerous. Patience. Ian understood something no one else did. Aegis wasn't just software. It was his creation. Every algorithm, every security protocol, every hidden line of code. He had written them himself. During endless nights inside that lonely prison cell, Ian replayed those millions of lines of code inside his mind. Again and again. He remembered tiny debugging shortcuts, forgotten administrator pathways, hidden emergency overrides, digital backdoors he had created years earlier for testing purposes and never expected anyone else to discover. Kane thought Aegis was unhackable. Ian smiled quietly to himself. You don't hack your own creation. You simply remember how you built it. 5 long years finally came to an end. When the prison gates opened, the man stepping outside no longer looked like the optimistic engineer who had entered. Ian had died behind those walls. His shoulders were broader, his expression colder. His eyes carried a calmness that frightened people more than anger ever could. He had no family waiting, no reporters, no friends, just silence. He disappeared completely. Months passed without anyone hearing his name. Officially, Ian no longer existed. He legally changed his identity, underwent minor facial reconstruction, changed his hairstyle, changed his voice through years of speech training. Even his posture was different. When he looked into the mirror, a stranger stared back. His new name was Cole. And Cole wasn't interested in revenge fueled by emotion. He wanted justice built on patience. He spent months creating an impeccable professional history. Every certificate, every recommendation, every cybersecurity achievement, everything was flawless. When his resume was finally complete, there wasn't a single reason for anyone to question it. Especially Kane. Meanwhile, Kane Vance had become one of the richest men on Earth. His company was worth hundreds of billions of dollars. World leaders invited him to conferences. Magazine covers called him the man who reinvented security. He believed himself untouchable. With unimaginable wealth came unimaginable luxury. Deep inside the forests of upstate New York, Kane built the Hyperion Mansion. It wasn't just a mansion. It was a technological masterpiece. Bulletproof glass stretched from floor to ceiling. Massive biometric steel doors guarded every entrance. Artificial intelligence controlled electricity, heating, ventilation, security cameras, even oxygen regulation throughout the building. Everything answered to one system, a newer, more advanced version of Aegis. Kane proudly told reporters, no criminal on Earth could ever enter this home. Ironically, the only person who could truly control it was the man who had built Aegis in the first place. Despite all his success, Kane had become increasingly paranoid. Every unexpected phone call unsettled him. Every unfamiliar face made him suspicious. He constantly felt someone was watching him. His board of directors suggested hiring an elite cybersecurity director dedicated solely to protecting Hyperion Mansion. Kane agreed. Applications flooded in from all over the world. Military experts, former intelligence officers, award-winning cybersecurity specialists, hundreds of impressive candidates. But one resume stood above them all. Cole. His credentials were nearly perfect. His interviews with company executives were flawless. Eventually, Kane insisted on meeting him personally. The two men finally sat across from one another. Kane studied the quiet applicant carefully. Cole remained calm, professional, respectful. Not once did his heartbeat betray what he was truly feeling. Across the desk sat the man responsible for stealing 7 years of his life. Yet Kane saw only a stranger. He didn't recognize the altered face. He didn't recognize the carefully trained voice. He certainly didn't recognize the cold determination hiding behind those composed eyes. Kane smiled. I think you'll fit in perfectly. Cole returned a polite smile. Thank you, Mr. Vance. I won't disappoint you. If only Kane knew what those words truly meant. Over the next 2 years, Cole became indispensable. Whenever a server malfunctioned, Cole fixed it. Whenever Aegis required updates, Cole improved it. Whenever Kane felt anxious, Cole reassured him. Trust wasn't demanded. It was earned. Slowly, patiently, day after day, Kane eventually trusted Cole more than anyone else inside the company. Board members came and went. Executives changed. But Cole remained beside him like a silent shadow. Late every night, after the mansion had gone quiet and everyone was asleep, Cole continued working alone inside the control room. Officially, he was optimizing security. Unofficially, he was quietly reopening every hidden doorway inside Aegis that only its original creator could ever find. One invisible backdoor, then another. Mapping cameras, testing sensors, preparing overrides. Piece by piece, the trap was finally taking shape. Cole never rushed, because he knew something most people forget. The most satisfying revenge is the one served only after your enemy believes they're completely safe. After 2 years of waiting, the opportunity finally arrived. Weather stations across New York issued emergency warnings. A powerful Category 4 winter blizzard was racing toward the state, bringing hurricane-force winds, whiteout conditions, and temperatures cold enough to freeze exposed skin within minutes. Roads were closed. Helicopters were grounded. Satellite signals became unreliable. Emergency services warned everyone to stay indoors. Cole watched the weather reports without showing the slightest emotion. This was the night he had been preparing for. That afternoon, he entered Kane's office carrying a tablet. "The storm's going to be worse than expected," he said calmly. "I'll head to the external backup facility and monitor the servers from there. If anything happens, I'll keep everything running remotely." Kane nodded without hesitation. Good thinking. He trusted Cole completely. As Cole walked toward the mansion's front entrance, Kane casually thanked him. "Glad you're on my team." Cole paused for only a fraction of a second. Without turning around, he quietly replied, "So am I." Then he disappeared into the falling snow. For the first time in years, Kane Vance was completely alone. Outside, the blizzard roared like a living monster. Snow slammed against the reinforced glass walls. The towering pine trees surrounding Hyperion Mansion bent violently beneath the screaming wind. Inside, the mansion remained warm, silent, and luxurious. Kane poured himself a glass of expensive whiskey and settled into the enormous living room, convinced his fortress could survive anything nature threw at it. Then, everything changed. The lights flickered once, twice. Then the entire mansion fell into complete darkness. Kane frowned. A power fluctuation? Before he could stand, emergency lighting activated. But instead of the soft white glow he expected, every hallway filled with a deep, blood-red light. The mansion instantly felt unfamiliar. Hostile. Alive. A deafening metallic crash echoed through the building. One security shutter slammed shut. Another opened halfway. Then another locked itself. Steel doors throughout the mansion began opening, closing, locking, unlocking, as if someone invisible were playing with them. Kane's pulse quickened. This isn't possible. He grabbed his phone. No signal. He tried the satellite emergency line. Nothing. Every communication channel was dead. Then, he heard footsteps. Slow. Measured. Behind him. He spun around. No one. Only the endless crimson hallway stretching into darkness. His breathing became shallow. This isn't real. He hurried down the corridor. Suddenly, the biometric security door behind him unlocked by itself with a loud mechanical click. The heavy steel door slowly swung open. Its hinges groaned through the silent mansion. Kane stared into the empty darkness beyond it. No one stood there. Yet every instinct screamed that someone was watching. Fear finally replaced confidence. He ran. His expensive shoes echoed against polished marble floors as he rushed toward the security command center. If anything was happening, the cameras would explain it. He burst through the control room doors. Dozens of massive CCTV monitors covered the walls. Every screen glitched violently. Static. Flashes. Broken images. Then, for less than a second, every monitor synchronized. The static disappeared. One familiar face appeared across every screen. Ian. Not Cole. Ian. The face from 7 years ago. Expressionless. Cold. Watching him. Before instantly vanishing back into red static. Kane stumbled backward so violently he nearly fell. His breathing became frantic. His hands trembled uncontrollably. No. Then louder. Who's there? His voice echoed through the empty control room. This isn't real. I'm losing my mind. A calm electronic voice answered him. But it wasn't the comforting AI voice he had heard thousands of times before. It sounded colder. Almost human. System override initiated. A brief pause. External communications offline. Every hair on Kane's body stood up. Then, the enormous 98-inch display mounted across the wall slowly came to life. A dark control room appeared on the screen. A single figure sat quietly before several glowing monitors. Cole. Without saying a word, he removed his glasses, looked directly into the camera, and spoke. Not with Cole's carefully practiced voice, but with the voice Kane had tried to erase forever. Hello, Kane. A brief silence followed. Then, it's been a while since the courtroom. Time seemed to stop. Kane's face lost every trace of color. His knees weakened. Ian. His voice barely escaped his lips. No, that's impossible. You're supposed to be ruined. You're nobody. Ian smiled. It wasn't a smile of hatred. It was the calm smile of a man who had already won. You thought you stole my life, Kane? He leaned slightly closer to the camera. But tonight, your fortress belongs to me. Ian pressed a single key. Inside the mansion, the heating system shut down instantly. Warm air disappeared. An icy chill spread through every room. Frost slowly began forming on the windows. Kane wrapped his arms around himself, shivering. Then Ian pressed another key. The air filtration system reversed. Oxygen levels began dropping. Not fast enough to kill, just slowly enough to terrify. Kane gasped. His lungs struggled. He sprinted toward the nearest exit. The massive steel doors refused to move. He pounded them with both fists. Again. 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 Nothing. Finally, he broke. Tears streamed down his face. His voice cracked. Ian, please. I'll give you everything. My money. My company. My shares. Take it all. I don't care. Just let me out. Ian watched silently for several seconds, then answered in a calm, steady voice. I don't want your money, Kane. I want justice. And tonight, the whole world is going to watch you give it to me. Kane's heart hammered so violently against his ribs that it almost drowned out the robotic voice echoing through the mansion. Every breath burned his lungs. The freezing air bit into his skin while the oxygen slowly thinned. The man who had once stood confidently before investors, presidents, and billionaires was now trembling like a frightened child inside the fortress he had bragged was impossible to breach. He pounded both fists against the steel door until his knuckles split open. No, open this. Ian, please. The only answer was silence. Then, click. Ian pressed another key. Every screen inside Hyperion Mansion came alive at once. Televisions, security monitors, digital mirrors, smart displays, even the refrigerator screen. All of them showed the exact same broadcast. Live. A countdown appeared. 3, 2, 1. The stream went public. Within seconds, it spread across every major news network, financial platform, YouTube homepage, and countless live stream websites around the world. Millions of people stopped what they were doing. Office workers, night shift employees, students, journalists, investors. Everyone stared in disbelief. The headline flashed across every screen. Breaking. Billionaire Kane Vance broadcasts live from Hyperion Mansion. Social media exploded. What is this? Is this a publicity stunt? Why does he look terrified? Inside the mansion, Kane finally noticed the camera lens hidden above the command center. His stomach dropped. Ian. His voice cracked. What have you done? Ian's calm face filled the giant monitor. I told you years ago, Kane. You stole my life in front of the whole world. So tonight, the whole world gets to hear the truth. Kane shook his head violently. No, you can't. You'll destroy everything. Ian leaned closer to the camera. You already destroyed everything. I've simply removed the lies hiding it. Outside, television anchors interrupted regular programming. This appears to be an authentic live broadcast from Vance Tech founder Kane Vance. Financial analysts watched in confusion as Vance Tech stock began fluctuating wildly. Investors rushed online. Reporters started connecting old court records involving Ian. The internet sensed something enormous was happening. Back inside the mansion, Kane collapsed onto his knees. His expensive suit was soaked with sweat despite the freezing temperature. I'll give you everything. My company. My shares. My homes. My private accounts. My jets. Please. Ian's expression never changed. I don't want your money, Kane. I want justice. And justice begins with the truth. He pressed enter. Every legal document. Every forged contract. Every hidden email. Every deleted message. Every financial transfer. Every piece of fabricated evidence used to imprison Ian appeared on screen beside Kane's face. The viewers weren't just hearing accusations. They were seeing proof. Absolute proof. Kane stared at the documents in horror. His lips trembled. He knew there was no escape. Millions of people were watching. The lies he'd carefully built over 7 years were collapsing faster than he could think. His voice failed. Ian waited. The silence felt endless. Finally, Kane buried his face in his shaking hands. I did it. The words barely escaped. Ian remained silent. Louder. Kane looked directly into the camera. Tears streamed down his face. I framed Ian. Across the globe. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. I stole Aegis. I falsified evidence. I bribed witnesses. I paid lawyers to bury the truth. I paid experts to fake reports. I paid people to testify against him. Every confession hit harder than the last. Journalists immediately began verifying names. Government agencies started making emergency phone calls. Former employees began contacting investigators. The chat sections beneath the live stream exploded so quickly they became impossible to read. Meanwhile, Wall Street opened emergency overnight trading. Vance Tech shares began falling. 5%, 10%, 20, 30, 40. Investors dumped billions of dollars within minutes. Financial reporters could barely keep up. We're witnessing one of the largest corporate collapses in modern history. Inside Hyperion Mansion, another screen activated automatically. A livestock ticker appeared beside Kane. Every few seconds, another red number flashed. -$4 billion. -$11 billion. -$26 billion. -$49 billion. The company wasn't simply losing value. It was being erased. Kane watched in complete disbelief. My company. His voice broke. No. My life's work. Ian answered quietly. No. It was mine. One notification appeared. Board member resigned. Another. Chief financial officer resigned. Another. Emergency shareholder meeting called. Then dozens arrived at once. Every executive was abandoning him. The empire he'd sacrificed his best friend to build was collapsing before his eyes. For the first time since Ian had known him, Kane looked small. Not powerful. Not wealthy. Just broken. He whispered. I ruined my own life. Ian didn't smile. There was no joy in his eyes. Only peace. You did. Far away, through the blizzard, flashing blue and red lights slowly appeared. Ian had already forwarded every confession, every document, and every backup file directly to federal investigators. Snow covered the roads, but armored federal vehicles forced their way toward Hyperion Mansion. The distant sirens grew louder. Kane heard them. His shoulders sagged. It's over. The AI announced one final message. Federal access authorized. With a deafening mechanical groan, the massive steel security doors unlocked. Outside, federal agents stormed through the entrance. FBI. Hands where we can see them. Kane didn't resist. He couldn't. He simply extended his trembling hands. Cold steel handcuffs clicked around his wrists. The cameras kept rolling. Millions watched as the world's most celebrated tech billionaire walked out of his own mansion, surrounded by armed federal agents. No luxury cars. No private security. No smiling investors. Only flashing police lights reflecting across the snow. As Kane disappeared into the back of the armored vehicle, he looked toward the dark forest one last time. For just a brief second, he thought he saw someone standing among the falling snow. Watching. Silent. Then the figure turned away. Ian closed his laptop. No celebration. No speech. No victory dance. He simply slipped the computer into his bag and quietly walked into the snow-covered woods. He didn't reclaim Vance Tech. He didn't announce who he really was. He didn't ask for applause. Ian Vance, the man the world believed had disappeared years ago, vanished once again. Only this time, he disappeared by choice. Snow slowly covered his footprints until they no longer existed. As he walked into the darkness, he finally understood something prison had taught him years before. The greatest prison had never been the concrete walls that held him. It had been Kane's greed. A prison built from lies, ego, and betrayal. And tonight, that prison had finally locked its creator inside forever. Standing in the shadows of the raging snowstorm, Ian watched in complete silence as the convoy of police vehicles disappeared into the darkness, their flashing red and blue lights slowly fading beyond the trees. Snowflakes drifted through the freezing air, settling on his shoulders, his hair, and the closed laptop in his hands. For a long moment, he didn't move. He had imagined this night thousands of times during those endless years inside a concrete prison cell. Back then, he thought revenge would feel like victory. That once Kane begged for mercy, every scar inside him would finally disappear. But as the icy wind swept through the forest, Ian realized something unexpected. The hatred was gone. Not because Kane deserved forgiveness, but because Kane no longer had the power to control his life. He looked back one final time toward the Hyperion mansion. The fortress that Kane had proudly called untouchable now stood surrounded by flashing emergency vehicles. Agents rushed through the gates, while reporters gathered outside the property, desperate for a glimpse of the man who had once been celebrated as the greatest technology visionary of his generation. Inside those walls, Kane had believed he controlled everything. Every lock, every camera, every heartbeat of the house. Yet in the end, it wasn't Ian who destroyed him. It was Kane's own greed. Ian slowly opened his laptop one last time. Without emotion, he erased every trace of the hidden access keys, every encrypted pathway, every digital identity he had created as Cole. One by one, the files disappeared. The aliases vanished. The servers went dark. Within minutes, the man known as Cole no longer existed anywhere in the digital world. No employee records. No banking history. No online identity. Nothing. Just as Ian had planned. He smiled faintly. Not out of happiness, but out of peace. For the first time in 7 years, he wasn't running from the past anymore. He was finally walking toward a future that actually belonged to him. Closing the laptop, Ian took one final glance at the mansion before turning away. His footprints stretched behind him across the untouched snow, but the relentless blizzard quickly buried each one beneath fresh layers of white. Within minutes, it was as if he had never been there at all. The ghost disappeared into the night, and with him disappeared the final witness to Kane Vance's empire. Sometimes people believe intelligence alone makes them unstoppable. Others believe money can erase betrayal. Kane Vance believed both. He stole a dream that wasn't his. Destroyed the life of the only man who ever truly trusted him. Built an empire on lies. And convinced himself that success meant he had escaped the consequences. But the truth has a strange way of surviving. It waits. Patiently. Silently. Until the perfect moment arrives. Greed may win the first battle. Lies may fool the world for years. But eventually, every empire built on betrayal begins collapsing from the inside. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it arrives quietly. One decision. One confession. One truth. At a time. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more unforgettable Reddit revenge stories. And tell us in the comments, if you were Ian, after losing everything because of your best friend's betrayal, would you have chosen justice? Or would you have gone even further? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.